There's always a reason why we couldn't tell the public the truth. There's always like a reason why we had to, like that, like the logic of lying is present in systems, right?
Mm-hmm.
I did not anticipate that logic would rear its head in movement land, right? Like, well, the reason why we can't say this publicly is that white people might not fund it, or the reason why we can't, like that logic.
Yeah.
And we just cannot demand of a system a set of values and beliefs we won't model. It doesn't work. Like, this is why it crumbles, right?
We're talking to DeRay Mckesson.
We are, yeah.
He's got a lot under his belt.
He does.
I mean, he's an
Interesting guy.
educator,
He is.
civil rights activist.
Yep.
You know, he works a lot in the area of policing and reform.
Yes.
And he even ran for office.
He did. Yeah.
And he wrote a book,
He
The
did.
Other Side of Freedom.
Another lazy person we are centering here in our conversation.
I know,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, we've got to change this. All right, it's a little. I'm over it by now.
Oh, my
I'm really over it by now.
goodness.
Yeah, it's incredible. I thought I was busy. Clearly, I'm not. But I love his advocacy. I mean, I know he started out kind of like in Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
And you know, and he was also an educator for so many years.
How was your experience at school? Anybody inspire you? What was that like for you? And how's that shaped you?
One of the ones who influenced me very early on was Dr. Gloria Alabarujo. She was this Black woman who came in the room dressed to the nines, first of all. She was very exacting and very demanding, but it was a demanding in a sense that she believed that you were capable of greatness, and she wasn't going to accept you doing anything else.
Wow.
She'd be like, Masud, this is not the level of work I expect from you. Take it home and do it again. So what are you gonna say?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's like, yes, ma'am. You know, but I noticed
That
in
hit you.
yeah, oh yeah. I wanted to please her.
Yeah.
though. There was a sense that she believed in me, and that belief in me created a desire, an aspiration to want to confirm her belief or validate it through my actions.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear what your educational experience was like.
I moved from California to Australia. A much different experience to Perth, Australia. And, you know, it just so happens, and maybe it was just a bad luck of the school, but the school that I entered, nobody looked like me. And obviously nobody talked like me. And of course, I mean, I sat by myself every lunchtime.
Yeah,
it was,
sure.
But, you know, I think bullying, and it carried me throughout the entire, like all my schooling until maybe high school. And I spent my work and my life empowering youth in those spiritual capabilities and capacities that they have, so that they can take what they already know in school and then use that to become the activists that we see in these interviews and these episodes that we're having together.
Yeah, I love that.
So I think that's my history with education. You know, I had one inspirational teacher, Mr. Kingston. I've looked everywhere for him. I can't find him because I just want to tell him what he did for me.
Yeah.
The reason why he was so inspiring is that he told stories. He told stories about life.
So amazing because, you know, I think oftentimes we, you know, teachers, mentors, people in our lives who are entering our lives intentionally with goodness in their heart and trying to help us move along and further our journey. Quite oftentimes they don't get the recognition or the thanks that they deserve. Yeah.
I think DeRay's going to have a lot to talk about that.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's going to hit a lot on education is what I'm feeling, and maybe we can get him to delve into a few other pertinent topics. I'd love to hear his thoughts maybe about Black Lives Matter and maybe about you know, how he kind of got to where he is and what kind of early experiences kind of led him to it. So let's see if we can give him a call and see if we can get him on. Sounds good?
Let's do it.
All right.
I'm ready if you are.
Hit it.
All right, let's go. And we're here for another episode of Undaunted, presented by Choose Unity with my favorite co-host.
Thank you, Masud Olufani.
And I'm Nava, Ghalili, and we're here speaking to DeRay Mckesson.
Oh, it's an amazing guy. Really great. Does a lot of good work in the social justice spaces and education. Work with Black Lives Matter. Really great guy. And here he is. DeRay, what's up, man?
Hey, y'all.
DeRay, so awesome to have you.
It's good to see y'all.
You know, when we're doing our research on you, I mean, educator, you know, run for office, you know, leading Black Lives Matter movements, you know, civil rights activist, altogether incredible human being. right now, what issue is heavy on your heart and your mind that you are working on and putting your energy into?
So I spend almost all of my time on issues of policing and criminal justice, and I believe that we can win in this lifetime, right? That's like my thing. I wake up and I'm like, we can do this. And this isn't like a pipe dream. We can actually transition from the police being key to public safety to alternatives in this lifetime. So that's what I do. And sort of our thing is this idea that the system is actually a collection of a million individual decisions. So what we do is we find those decisions and we piece them apart, right? Knowing that some have a bigger impact than others. So like, drug-free school zones are bad and have nothing to do with drugs, or, the war on drugs, or you might not know that every single state charges people who are incarcerated room and board in some fashion. Like, all these things are like these million little individual things that aren't little in people's lives, but like they just don't make the news. And we try to figure those because we think that the system will break when we break those.
It's deep, man, because policing is like your area. That's where you really are focusing on right now. And I don't know if a lot of people know, and I'm sure you've had this experience yourself, but as a black man, I always have anxiety when the police are near me, pull up behind me, or whenever I get stopped. And I know that I haven't done anything wrong. I mean, I know that, but I start running in my mind, okay, did I do something 10 years ago that I just forgot about? Maybe they got a warrant out on me. But that sense of being imperiled, of being threatened by the system, simply because, you exist, you present in a black body, is something that is part of your everyday reality. It's a haunting in a way. And I was wondering if you could talk about, man, what was there an experience that kind of got you interested in doing this kind of work? You can talk about your own feelings, historically when you have had interactions with the police. So just curious.
Yeah. So it wasn't an experience with the police that got me involved in the movement. It was Mike Brown's death. Like that was single-handedly the thing. There wasn't another thing that did it. Yeah. That was it for me. But in Baltimore, I used to run an after-school program in Baltimore. And one morning I needed to go to school. And the way the program worked is that I had kids from 3 to 8 p.m. 3 nights a week, which is a very long time to have 5th through 8th graders. Yes. And one of the staff members left something on the desk. So I needed to get there like at 6 a.m., literally like before the principal hated me. So I needed to get there like early. So I'm driving through the most affluent community in Baltimore and I see this officer ready to pull me over. Yeah. I got to get to school. Mr. What's his name? Mr. Oh my God, his first name was Otis. What was his last name? Anyway, he hated me. And I'll never forget it. The police officer's like behind me. He's not pulling me over yet. I just pull over. I'm like, give me a ticket. I got whatever you're going to do. Give me a ticket. I need to go to school. Right. So I pull over and he is on 10. He gets out of the car, gun drawn. He's like, put your upper hands up. He's like on 10. Mind you, at this point, I'm still way more afraid of the principal who hated me. So this guy's like pointing a gun at me and I'm literally saying to him, it'll be okay. Everything's gonna be okay. Right. Everything's okay. Like I'm de-escalating him. I'm like, you got a gun pointing at me. I didn't even do anything. So in the end, he like doesn't give me a ticket. He's like trying to joke. I'm like, you literally just pointed a gun at me. That there's like nothing funny just happened. Yeah. So that happens. And I will never forget, I called somebody I knew who worked in Baltimore City government. She was high ranking. And I said to her, this crazy thing just happened with the police. I want to file a report. And she's like, DeRay, the report won't matter. Just go home. And I remember being like, well, I guess that's what it is, right? Mike Brown gets killed. I was living in Minneapolis at the time. And I was like, I used to teach. I taught 14 years ago. I taught 6th graders. And at the time that Mike Brown got killed, my kids were like the same age as Mike Brown, right? They were like in that same sort of one year span. And I remember being like, if I can't go stand in the street for 2 days for this boy that got killed, then like I actually don't believe in kids, right? Like if I can't, like if that is literally the least I can do. I had like no money. I was driving a Saturn Ion. I don't even know if they make Saturn Ions anymore, but I was driving a Saturn Ion. I drove from Minneapolis to St. Louis knowing nobody because it was like I would do it for kids. And the rest is history. I stayed for more than 2 days. I quit my job. I moved out of the apartment. And then I just like moved, and it was like, this is the least I could do, Wow.
As an educator, I would love for you to speak to that. I mean, a lot of my work is in youth empowerment activism. What is the cross section between education and your experience with youth and your activism? How are the two married?
So much. So much. It's like the teaching like changed my life. Like by far the best thing I've ever done in everything. Wow. And I'd say like three big things. The first is it gave me infinite patience. Like I worked with sixth graders, right? Sixth graders are like snotty. They think farting's cool. The boys think burping's cool. Like it's like the girls have cootie. You know, it's like the whole thing. And it was like I taught 60, 90, and 120-minute classes, which is a lot of math for kids, like for anybody, let alone 11-year-olds. So like it just gave me a deep sense of patience. It was like, okay, we can ride it out. The second is that it taught me how to take complex things and make them simple because, you know, I don't know, were you math phobic? Like, did you love math? Were you good at math?
Well, in kindergarten, my math teacher, I'm kindergarten, the teacher actually, she said, it's math time. And then I said, oh, boo. I didn't know what I was saying. She put me in the corner and she put my name up on the wall. And ever since then, I've hated math. But I want to say.
Ooh, so you early.
Yeah, real early. Kindergarten.
Mine was algebra 2. I was at algebra 2. I was like, you know what? I don't get all this Pythagorean theorem stuff. I'm just, peace. I'm out. That was a wrap.
But what were you going to say after kindergarten? What was it after kindergarten?
I want to say it was probably 6th grade.
Yeah, so both of you are exactly what we anticipate is middle school. Yeah. So middle school is often where, because 5th grade is the last time that you do the operation. So like, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. 5th grade is that. 6th grade is the last year that a teacher like knows how to teach the operations. Like we can't divide in 7th grade. That teacher like isn't really going to teach you how to divide. But we found this big drop that happens in middle school. Kids don't feel smart. They don't feel like it's just a hard place. So when I taught, I figured out how to teach the entire year's worth of curriculum by Christmas. Like we did all 6th grade math by Christmas.
Wow.
And then we learned a hodgepodge of skills from January to June. And my kids did well. All of my kids got at least a 3, which is proficient. Half got a 4, which is the highest you can get in New York State. And what made me able to do that was like, I wasn't a great math student, but I was a very good math teacher because I didn't understand it either. I'm like, I don't know, like I'll never get dividing decimals. I'm like, I don't think I've ever divided decimals my entire life before I taught it. And in terms of the movement work, it's like we get these like qualified immunity, felony theft, all these really big things. And we spend a lot of time trying to figure out like, how would I explain it to my aunt? My aunt is busy. My aunt has 3 kids. She is doing a lot. She is not like reading any books about criminal justice, but she cares, right? And like teaching gave me the skill of like take the big complicated thing and make it simple. And I'll tell you, as a teacher, one of the tricks that we did and how I can teach so much so quickly is most people think about teaching who have not taught. They think about teaching things all in like one big unit, right? So like we do fractions, I teach you all the fraction things, and you do algebra, I teach you all that. Yeah. But what the good teachers do, and this is what I learned my second year, is you actually pepper in all the stuff that people need before they really need it. So because you've both done some algebra, that when 2 numbers touch, it means multiplication. Like 3x is 3 times x, 3b is 3 times. Like you understand that. That is not an explicit skill. Like that we don't have like a name for that in the book. But I taught my kids that like the second week of school, just because it was like a game for them. They were like 3, this multiplication. By the time we got to algebra, they were like they could do that in their sleep. Like that concept wasn't new to them. Wow. Because I like pre-taught it, and like that was the gift that I learned from another teacher. So that was the second. But the third thing is that everybody wants to experience success. Like that was it. So like if you can make a classroom where kids feel successful in the room, you can do anything, right? Especially with math. And like in the movement space, it's like, how do I help organizers and people in community like feel success, whether it's through like a policy thing or a meeting, like. If I can get you to feel success, then like we can do anything. And so much of our work is like, how do we invite people like you? You're not a content expert on this, but you care. How do I create space for you to do really good work? Like that is the challenge that I'm often facing every day.
Wow. There's something key, man, in what you said. You're talking about helping people experience success, right? Particularly students. And I'm curious, man, for you, and I think this is important for everybody, for all of us to experience success. It like builds a kind of sense of self-esteem. It helps us to build our confidence, to feel better about our possibilities. And I'm wondering when you first felt that experience of success for you and how that was important perhaps to sending you on this pathway towards, service, being involved in social justice work and all of that. So what is there experience or a series of experiences you can point to, man, that were really critical, informative, where you felt that sense of success that helped you feel like you had something to contribute?
Actually, before he answers that, Could you take us to the part before that where you were feeling, were you ever feeling a sense of helplessness? You talked about people think they're just not good enough. Was there ever a point in time in your life that you felt that way? And then where was the point that you might have felt like, this is something I can handle, this is something I can do, this is success?
So I was a teacher, as you know, and teaching was really hard. It was just hard. And I was used to being really good at what I was good at, right? I did this thing, I was really good at it. I put a lot of time in, and teaching is one of those things where you can't just bulldoze it. Stamina wasn't enough, right? It was I could stay up all night long and still teach the worst lesson ever. And that was hard, right? And you don't get a lot of downtime. So in between Monday and Tuesday, it's just, it was hard. And I'll never forget, I taught this lesson on dividing decimals, and I taught a 90-minute class. 20 minutes in, I'm done. I have nothing more to say. I don't have any worksheet. I mean, it's just they're looking at me what you got? And I'm looking at them everybody turn to page 30 and let's read. Literally, I know I don't have it. I'm I don't have it. And that's first period. I got to do this 2 more times. And I just don't. And I'll never forget feeling I just had never been that not good at something in such a high stakes way in front of people who deserve something better than me. And that really just changed a lot. It made me focus. It gave me a sense of responsibility, all those things. In terms of my sense of success, I was really lucky. I was in student government literally from 6th grade to senior in college. I was a president of every school I've been to. And student government was my thing. That was my home. It was what made me love planning. It was what taught me policy, and that was I was really blessed to be around adults who weren't my family, but who poured into me and loved me and pushed me and treated my ideas as worthy. And, my mother, you might already know this because it's not a secret, but my mother left when I was 3 and my father raised us. And my great-grandmother lived with us until I was 11. So we were always really, me and my father and my sister were really close. And my great-grandmother, before she passed, we were all really close because she raised us. But I remember, I never had I always grew up with understanding community as bigger than the family unit because John, my mother, she just wasn't there, right?
Yeah.
And I was super, super lucky to have these adults that just poured so much into me so early.
Yeah, because you were talking about community, sense of community at being larger, and sometimes more important than the families that we don't choose, right? In communities that are dealing with very stressful circumstances, be it poverty, be it sometimes there's drug addiction that occurs, or sometimes it's just the stress of making it from day to day. And a lot of times it causes fissures or, families become disconnected and people leave and, whatever, all sorts of things manifest themselves. And I'm wondering, man, when you meet young people and they come from those spaces where they don't have, a sense of community, they don't have somebody around them, or they have not had somebody around them to encourage their ideas, to, create space for them to be fully and wholly themselves. How do you speak to young people to help them to, to kind of to feel a sense that they have something to contribute and offer?
Yeah, I don't, high school is not my gift, which is why I taught middle school. So when people are like, I'm like, I don't know. I don't understand high school is. I'm like, I don't understand why you're not sitting down. You're 16. I'm like, I just cognitively, I don't get it. But what we as organizers, what we say about young people, right, is that young people often have the experiences before they have the language. And so much of our work is to help young people find the language, but we're not here to invalidate their experience. They have it. So my kids didn't have the language of white supremacy, but they knew it. I'm like, have you ever been followed in a store? They're like, yes. Have you ever been treated differently? Do you think you've been treated differently because you look a certain way? Yeah, they had the experiences. My work was to try and help them think about how to marry the language with them. A lot of people grow up in food deserts. They don't call them food deserts, but they know that they had to drive 2 cities over to go to the grocery store, right? So that's that's the first part of it. The second part of it is, and with young people, it's so much easier in some ways because they just don't have the bogged down stuff that we get as adults. I was talking to a teacher yesterday, actually, who called for advice about how to think about her work with kids. And, one of the things that we ask people is tell me the place, I'll actually deal with you. Tell me the place where you think of the place, don't tell me yet, where you feel the most safe. Get that in your mind. And then I want you to think about what is in that place. So take 2 seconds and do that. Okay. So one of you tell me some things that are in your place.
Oh man, incense, jazz music. My work as an artist. There's a lot of quiet in that space. Yeah, a lot of light.
Mm.
Yeah.
Me?
Yeah, you.
Not a lot of light. It's like I want to be in the dark. It's like the quiet where no one bothers you. Where there's no one waiting for you, expecting anything from you, to judge you.
It's both of you. Are the police in that space?
No.
No, right? And we remind people that if we ask you, where do you feel the most safe? What does that look like?
Yeah.
You will describe a whole host of things that don't include the police.
Yeah.
So when people tell us that they can't imagine a world without the police, we tell them that they just don't know that they've already done it, right? And like young people are the best at that because they just have this like expansive view of what community looks like and but that what you just did is like the exercise that we do with anybody to help them realize like you already got it. I'm not the best I can do as an organizer is help you see what you already got. Like I can't give it to you, but you got it. When you had to think about the place where you feel the most safe, your gut was not people with guns, their cages to keep people out. Like both of you described something very different. And what we would say is that the world that you said is the most safe for you, we want everybody to have those things. We want to scale that, right? And like young people are just like the easiest sometimes to walk through exercises like that.
I love that. It's the first time I ever had anybody kind of run me through an exercise like that. That's really amazing. Wow. No, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I think our generation, I'm a millennial, and I think millennials and Gen Zs, there's a group of us that some people call idealistic or optimistic, and we work really hard to move things forward in whatever small capacity or whatever way we can. And then there's another prevailing force and feeling of cynicism and lack of hope. And you talk in your book about hope. And there's a section where you actually say, and of course, you know it, you wrote it, but when your faith wavers, you turn to hope. And I wonder if you could speak on that and how that speaks to you. When has your faith wavered, where then you leaned on hope?
My, it's hard. I'm in many ways, I feel the best that I've ever felt. And so much of that, I talk about this on my own podcast the other day at the beginning, but this idea of surrender, I've been like really intrigued by the idea of surrender. And so much of our language around surrender is rooted in defeat, right? Like there's a defeat and you surrender. But I don't feel that. I don't feel defeated, right? But I was talking to another friend, and he was sort of like this idea of like softening into surrender, this idea of like being really open and like vulnerable, and that is like what I feel. So the moments that my hope is challenged is when I'm in places where people don't believe that another world is possible, in places where people believe that like what is present today is permanent, and like we don't believe, like that is where I get like stressed. But otherwise, like I'm pretty open to trying to figure out like what it looks like to get to the other side of freedom, which is why the book's called The Other Side of Freedom. And we spend almost all of our time in the solutions. Like I like the problems, I get the problems, but you don't need me to tell you the police are killing people, and the police are killing people. You know that, right? So I spend almost all day, like I've been in meetings since 8 a.m. and I'll be in meetings till 7, literally trying to like in a million different meetings, trying to figure out like what are solutions. And like, that's like where I spend almost all of my time. And that to me is like the hope work. I'm sensitive to the fact that our job is hard because on this side of the world, like on the left, we are trying to build a world that we have never seen, but we know is possible. I have not lived in a world where everybody has access to healthcare, quality healthcare, but I believe it. I've not lived in a world where the police don't kill people, but I believe that world is like, we are always storytellers. We're fictive storytellers. Like it's fiction. We're like trying to build this thing we haven't, we're telling stories about a world, and that is hard work, and sometimes that gets a little challenging. The other thing that where my hope is challenged is that the movement is often like a really, really, really not fun middle school or high school cafeteria, where you're like, why are we fighting over this? Like there are a lot of things to fight about. This isn't it, like you're like, get me out of here. And I never thought that I would ever have to use anything I considered a gift to fight Black people. But the movement is like, you're like, why am I fighting you? You're not my enemy, right? Like, you just aren't the enemy. Like, I'm here to fight the system. Here's the third thing that I'll say is that I get worried a lot about, empires or systems or whatever you want to call it, always have a justification for doing the bad thing. There's always a reason why we couldn't tell the public the truth. There's always like a reason why we had to, like the logic of lying is present in systems, right? I did not anticipate that logic would rear its head in movement land, right? Like, well, the reason why we can't say this publicly is that white people might not fund it, or the reason why we can't, like, that logic. And we just cannot demand of a system a set of values and beliefs we won't model. It doesn't work. Like, this is why it crumbles, right? But it also helps you see how difficult it is to hold values across time and space. And I have been watching that play out in movement land, and it has been something I've been struggling with.
I find it interesting that one of the bits that kind of hurts you the most, I mean, obviously the injustices do, but what you first went to was when people don't think that we can't, like, that we can fix it. That was such a point of irritation for you. It's like the injustices exist, but what really hurts me is when people don't think there's another side, that there's another side that we can come out to on the other end. Like it's kind of a fatalistic kind of view of the world. And like,
because I can't do anything with you. That, it's like, what do we do? We like sit around and talk about how bad it is. It's like, got it.
Exactly.
And the metaphor that I use in my mind is this idea of like, people often are like, you're preaching to the choir. And I'm like, yes, that is the highest honor you could say, right? Because a choir director is like the best teacher, like the best organizer. The best teacher walks into the classroom and knows that I didn't give you, like, you came here smart before you got to me, right? The best I can do is like give you more skills, help you access those skills long after I'm gone. That's what the best of teaching can do. What the best organizer does is walk into the room and say, you already had gifts. What I just did with you around that exercise, you already had juice. What I can do is help you unlock it. That is like the best of organizing. And what the best choir director does is say, you already had a voice before you came into the choir, right? What I can do is help you do things with that voice that you didn't know you can do. And I can help you figure out how to use that voice with other people. So the hard part are the people who don't think that they can ever sing. That's a hard person in the choir, right? The person who walks in and is like, give me some music, let's do some private lessons, or my voice is a little shaky, can I play the drums? Cool. All that stuff, like, we can work on that. But if you walk in and you're like, I can never sing, that's just like that's a hard thing to deal with,
And the beauty, I think, about the work you're doing, the intentional work you're doing, is that you're focused on bringing out those gems that are already there. And the person might not be aware that they're all there, or they might have just a low estimation of how much is in there, but you see it. And you kind of help to clear away the clutter so that can come more to the fore. And I love that, man. I just think that's a much more empowering way to approach the craft of teaching, the practice of teaching. I love that, man.
And we're always mindful, as a teacher, I was always mindful that I am always teaching a lesson in power, always, right? And my ego doesn't need to show up in that. So like in my classroom, we had no assigned seating. Sit wherever you want. You manage your own body, but I'm not reteaching because you weren't listening. So if you sit next to your best friend, that's cool. If y'all talk all day and everybody fail, that's dope. I didn't do it. You did it. But like, I'm teaching you how to like manage your body, right? And like, we would have work days where like, it was like, I would post work sets across the board and and you do it at your own pace and, get up when you want to. You didn't have to ask me to get out of your chair. Like, do you? But like when the time comes to show me that, you learn, like, you got to be there. Right. And it was like, my ego I didn't need to run a jail-like classroom because like, I'm gonna be the teacher no matter what. I'm gonna be the teacher whether you have a temper tantrum tomorrow, whether you don't, like, I'm still gonna be here. So my ego doesn't have to like lord power over you. Like, that's not where I get my sense of purpose. And that was important to me too.
You have a gift for the practice of teaching, and for drawing out, the gifts that people have within them. Man, who was that teacher for you? Because you didn't. I mean, I know you probably have an innate talent, but somebody did that for you along the way. And I'm just wondering who the person that stands out for you that did that for you.
Yeah, I don't think there are teachers that were hugely important in my life. It wasn't like, I don't think they were not like my best content teachers. I don't think I had like, that wasn't how I thought about them. So Miss Rupel was the yearbook teacher. I'm still close to her. But we were very close when I was in school. And she was like, she just like trusted. She was like, cool, if you want to do this, do that. Like, it was like she was just like, we were partners doing this together, and she was definitely the teacher, but like she respected my mind, and that was a huge deal for me as a kid. My second grade teacher, Miss Rainey, was like a mother in some ways, and like she was dope. So those teachers were like really big. And then I had a teacher in college who was very tough, Professor Yarborough, but she was just like, she was like unrelenting with this idea of like, either you show up ready or you don't. Like there's no gray. Like we had one class where it was a senior seminar. It was about Tocqueville. I majored in political theory. And she was like, what is the ruling passion of the noblest mind? There was the question. It's like 7 of us. None of us knew. We had to read like 100 pages a night for class. Like, I don't know where this is tucked in this random chapter. And she looks at us and she goes, everybody go home. Don't come to class unprepared again, and walks out. Like, what is this woman doing? But it was like a gangster. You're like, I love it. Like, you gotta be crazy about this. And it was just, I've been super blessed to have adults who just were unrelenting in the expectations they had, and like not crazy expectations, but this idea like either you come ready or you don't, right? And I think about like what I bring to the movement space. I hope on my best days in the classroom, it's like, either kids deserve a great teacher every day or they don't, right? And either I'm gonna be that great teacher or I'm not. And like that was my like, I was trying to get there every day because it's like a kid I love would deserve this. And people are like, what did you do? It's like, I taught. I like woke up at 4. I was on the 4:48 a.m. train. I was at school at 6 a.m. I left at 4 p.m. I ate 2 slices of pepperoni pizza at Vesuvio's and had a peach Snapple, and I went to sleep. Like I was broke. I slept on the hardwood. I couldn't afford a bed when I first went to New York. So for 2 weeks, I slept on my childhood bedroom sheets on the floor with a pillow. And then I slept on an air mattress for 2 years because I couldn't afford a bed. You know, like I taught. That was all I did. So it was like, I better be good at it because I'm not going out. I'm not doing it. Like I taught. That was like my life when I was here the first time.
So you've sketched with some really, profound brushstrokes about, your vision, about teaching, about the way that you're going about teaching, also your activism. And I'm just curious, man, what is the, what does the end goal look like for you? You talked a little bit about it, but if you had if you could kind of create this reality that you're moving towards, what would that look like fundamentally for you?
Yeah, I really do think we can win this lifetime. So I think that the thing that I see the most clearly is like, so to win is 2 parts. It's like take down the bad things, build the good things, right? I can see the end of the bad things. I got it. Like, I just can't move quick enough, but I see it. So like we are working on 50 campaigns right now. The team is like, DeRay, we can only do 10 at a time. I'm like, 10's not enough, but I got it. I can like see it in my head. I can see it when I go to sleep. I see it when I wake up. I'm like, I literally cannot move. There's just not enough time for me to do them all at once, but I got it. I don't know if I will be the person around to be here when we build the new thing, somebody else. I don't see that yet, but I can see the end of the bad. I got it. It is crystal clear. And, I had to tell myself, I am super aware that I will not live forever. And a part of that acknowledgement is to say that before I take my last breath, I want to be able to say that I fought for Black people as much as I could. And I never lost my joy in that. And that is like what I take every night that I go to sleep, that like I did my part to fight for Black people, and I never lost my sense of joy.
Oh man, I love that. Well, we're so glad that you're doing the work you're doing and you're fighting. And
it's fighting for a better world.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's one of those things when I look at when people have critiqued the title Black Lives Matter, and I find it to be a very curious thing because I find it to be very curious and sometimes irritating, because really Black Lives Matter does not mean that other lives matter, that other lives don't matter. It means that those lives that have not mattered historically, we're now centering those lives and affirming their existence, their reality, and the fact that they do matter. So I really am just so happy, brother, that you're in a space doing the work you're doing, that you are affirming in a day-to-day basis in the way that you're expending your energy and your talent, that yes, indeed, Black Lives Matter, brother, and that we all matter. Keep doing what you're doing, man. We're so happy to have this conversation with you, brother.
Thank you so much, DeRay.
Let's do it.
All right, man. Beat that traffic, brother. All right, man.
Bye-bye.
Peace.